Hey everyone, how you guys doing? So I have a topic of discussion that is probably not going to go over with a few people. And so my request is that you actually bear with me and just kind of listen from a perspective of kind of curiosity, right? No judgment, just curiosity. Well, this is interesting. The point that I'm getting at is maybe you have a friend or family member, maybe you're a health professional, massage therapist, acupuncturist, you name it, and somebody comes to you and you happen to see them in the first thing in the, or early in the morning, not real early, but like around the start of the business day, we'll just say, and they're complaining of being excessively tired. I mean, like groggy, like where you can actually visually see them nodding off, like, and they're struggling to literally keep their eyes open. And so you ask them if they're okay. And they tell you, yes, they're just really, really tired and they feel like they're hungover. So then you proceed to follow up with, well, how much did you drink last night? And they tell you, I didn't drink anything. Well, then, through a little bit more inquiry, you find out that they actually smoke some pot. But you know that they have a history of doing this. It's not a big deal. But this time, it's still something isn't right. So you keep querying them, and you're really not getting anywhere. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it pops up that they actually were exposed to, or had gotten their hands on, or had used some German chamomile. Okay, German chamomile is the blue chamomile. And it's blue because it contains cameosin, that's what makes it blue. Okay, it's one of the constituents. At any rate, you find out that this was the only other thing that was in their space, and then they went to bed, and now they're up, and they went to bed at a normal time, like about 10 o'clock, and they up 7:30 in the morning, and they're acting as if they hadn't gotten any sleep at all, can't keep their eyes open, and you can't quite figure out what's going on with them, and neither can they. I'll tell you what's going on with them. It's called an adverse reaction. And what I mean by that is, so we all know CBD comes from the pot plant, right? Hemp. Cannabis is a better way to say it. Weed. CBD, the infamous CBD. Well, a number of studies around the world, a lot of them coming from Australia, but there's been other countries as well, have demonstrated the fact that CBD is a very well-known CYP450 enzyme inhibitor. It inhibits most enzyme activity in the liver. Therefore, it really doesn't bode well to partner it with any kind of medication for this reason. They recognize it for this. So that's already a number one concern. But cameosin, you guys, also influences CYP3A4, which is one of the enzymes. It affects the activity on that enzyme. So if you have one component of, and granted, each like the oil has a handful of constituents, as does cannabis. The cannabis has 421 constituents to be exact. But that said, when you have these two chemicals and they're both influencing, okay, and like I said, cameosin is actually, as far as I'm concerned, is as powerful of an enzyme influencer as CBD. This is really what was the catalyst for me. I should say, an experience I had with one of my clients was the catalyst for actually getting to the degree of understanding constituents and the potential for drug injury. And this is what I would consider drug injury, because what I witnessed, truthfully, this is something I actually witnessed this morning, the example I just gave you. But what I witnessed is called an additive effect. That is an adverse reaction. It's, an adverse reaction we typically relate to as some sort of allergic reaction. But an additive response is also an adverse reaction. And an additive response simply means that when the components come together, it increases it adds to the effect. Okay, so we already know that weed will, like, really, it stones you. It just it just levels you out. And I don't know why we ever call it high, because anyway, that's a whole nother story. But the point is that the Cameosin created an additive effect, and so therefore an oil that contains Cameosin, and this is just one example, really doesn't mix with any kind of medication. But the experience that I was getting to was that a few years back, almost 10 years now, I was working with somebody. We were using, and German chamomile was one of the oils that I was using, and they were having trouble sleeping, and we had gotten them to sleep. And then, without me knowing about it, they went on Zantac. And then all of a sudden, Zantac has more of an excitatory effect on the system. And the next thing we know is there was no more sleep. There was a lot of agitation a lot of agitation and anxiety almost. So in theory, what had happened was the reverse of what we know German chamomile to be, which is very calming and soothing, became an it actually became an anxiety increaser because of the conflict with the Zantac. And this is really what prompted me to begin to investigate constituents and the way they can interact. And so my goal really is patient education and helping people understand how to safely. I mean, this guy this morning was just like dead on his feet. It was horrible to watch. And it's just one of those things. I mean, he could have gone back to bed, or he could have just kind of worked through the day. And unfortunately, he had to go to work today. So I keep touching my screen because it keeps darkening on me. But I just wanted to give that as an example. It's like, if you can be looking for an adverse reaction, especially as a health professional, is really important to identify, because again, we already if you are a medical professional, a doctor, a nurse, a PA, you already know that the adverse reactions that occur between drugs, and you're familiar with the allergic type reactions, and you're familiar with the additive reactions. But what I'm proposing here is that natural things will actually interact with one another, and natural things will interact with medications, thereby also incurring some degree of adverse reaction. So that was my example. So just because we recognize something as natural does not make it safe. And I think it's really wise for us to be, understanding that, again, so like I said, the example I'll give you here is like Zantac has more of an excitatory effect in the body. So the Cameosin and the German chamomile amplified it prolonged or slowed down, rather. Either way, it prolonged the body's exposure to the Zantac, increasing and heightening his experience of anxiety and agitation. In the case of the pot and the German chamomile, it accentuated and prolonged the THC effect in the body and really just knocked him for a loop. And because German chamomile is also very calming and sedating, much like pot, he had a really severe additive effect. So that's what I wanted to share today. Again, drug injury doesn't just occur between drugs and medications. It occurs between natural remedies as well as natural and medications. So let me know if you have any questions. And if you are a medical professional, let me just say I have offering beginning this Tuesday a lunch and learn it's Tuesday through Friday at noon, but it's noon per time zone. So on Tuesday it's noon Eastern, Wednesday it's noon Central, Thursday it's noon Mountain, and Friday it's noon on the East Coast. And you're welcome to join in at any time that suits you. You don't have to live in that particular time zone. Just know that I start at noon in each time zone on those days. So if you choose a day that's outside your time zone, we just need to make sure we accommodate for your timing. Okay? Anyway, thank you guys so much for being here. And just let me know if you have any questions, because this is something that just I think is really important to begin sharing more and more of. All right, take care.